Welcome to Liminal Space, where we explore the thresholds of identity, culture, and experience. I am Matthew Liu, one half of the host duo. Along with my friend Susan, we've created this podcast for those who find themselves navigating the spaces in between, whether it's between cultures, worlds, or ideas. Each episode, we delve into the rich complexity of modern Chinese stories as told by those who exist at its peripheries. Diaspora voices, third culture kids, and individuals who embody the bridge between China and the world and between tradition and innovation. Step into liminal space with us, where we find meaning in the transitions, the gray areas, and the moments of becoming.
Today, we have the honor of hosting Joshua Charles Woodard, a close friend and a modern Renaissance man. Josh is an engineer, entrepreneur, photographer, violinist, and nightlife demon. Growing up in Chicago, Josh charted out the beginnings of his China dream from his humble beginnings at Whitney Young High School to MIT, and from MIT to Beijing for China's Schwarzman Scholars program. Josh has worked on everything from building his own supply chain consulting business to throwing some of the littest parties in Shenzhen. Without further ado, welcome to the show.
What's up, fam? How y'all doing today?
Welcome. So, Josh, I've been a follower of yours on Instagram, Josh at the Sparrows. I noticed you're making a lot of cool content, and you're bridging that slowly towards 小红书Little Red, the Chinese app. So
Red
I guess
Note.
the Red Note. Okay,
Little red book in English.
but yeah, how's that been?
Yeah, social media. I'll start with a thesis that I've crowdsourced from multiple YouTube videos. We're like now in the age where in order to have true engagement in your product or your service, you have to be personable. It's no longer about just having a cool, recognizable brand, but more so about professional platforms like Instagram and TikTok. It's about like being a persona that people want to follow. Nobody wants to be advertised at because we all know what advertising looks like very, very well, right? But if you create interesting content that engages people that they want to continue to follow and share and like and comment on, then it's a better way of building natural brand trust and recognition over time, which then I hope in the long run will translate towards being a natural way of generating leads for the Sparrows, for my manufacturing consulting business. So yeah, right now I'm making a bunch of videos on Chinese proverbs, which actually is much easier to do. There are two types of content that I make, right? One type of content is factory tours, and the other type right now is Chinese proverbs. The Chinese proverbs, you can make these like 2 to 3 hours. And like, I end up learning stuff, you know? I'll use 10-cent chat GPT and I'll put in a proverb and it'll just tell me the proverb's history and etymology and uses. So I can give interesting stories. Yeah, it's been a fun process.
Yeah. What have you seen are some of the differences in, say, Red Note as a social media platform and Instagram or any of the other Western platforms that we're more familiar with, either in the design of the app itself or the user experience, or what kinds of content tend to do well?
So I think for all of these platforms, it caters to different levels of brain rot, right?
So interesting.
TikTok is for the most rotten of brains. Like, these are for people with the attention span of a peanut. So all TikTok content is like bam, 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 flashing from thing to thing to thing. IG, I think, has a wider diversity. You have people doing vlogs. The video's a little more well-paced, right? You don't feel like you're about to have a stroke when you watch the content. And Red Note, somehow, I think it leans more towards personal blogging and more towards an IG style, more relaxed and in like a Chinese way, but it'll just be like people long form talking or ranting, you know, with lots of clips interwoven in between. I'm still trying to figure out Red Note, but coming from zero and like posting 4 videos, like it has been kind of easy just getting a few followers. I only posted 3 videos. I get like 1 new follower every day. I mean, in terms of math,
Pretty
it means
good.
I only have 25 followers now. It's like not good numbers, but like yeah,
You got to
it's a
start
different
somewhere.
game.
Mhm.
Yeah, man. Trying to figure it out.
That's great. The only thing I think I notice is for the Red Note, you can't link externally. They're very protective of their traffic, essentially keeping it all in-house. I think a lot of people were confused, like why are my posts being directly deleted or whatever? Yeah, you can't link to
Yeah.
anything. hmm Yeah, you
Well,
were saying, Susan?
that is the case for a lot of Chinese apps too. WeChat, you can't really like link other things directly either. Like it is
They make it
kind
hard.
of part of that
Mhm.
closed ecosystem. Yep. Yeah. So in terms of the context behind all the social media, which Matt and I, we are obviously familiar with, but Josh, can you tell us why you decided to suddenly become this influencer type that shows Americans the inner workings of a Chinese pad factory or what Tangping means? Like, tell us more
Yeah.
about the sparrows, about this part.
Yeah, that video we made where we went to the minstrel pad factory. I didn't realize how much people would like it. I think it's the absurdity and the contrast of a black dude explaining and walking through a feminine pad factory. It's just so strange. People like it. I think we need to do more stuff like that. Okay. So the sparrows. Back in 2023, I had a vision. How do we bridge the cultural gap between America and China? No, that's not the vision, actually. Back in 2023, I was tired of working at Apple. And I guess what I've seen at Apple, at other companies, there is more than a linguistic gap. There's like a cultural gap of understanding and collaboration across borders. I think it's fair to say that for a lot of the outside world, the world outside of mainland China, they don't understand how it works here, like how people do business, how they go about building relationships and how they go about collaboration. So because I've only worked in China forever, I've never worked in any other country, and I've been here already 7 years, it seems like an interesting space to explore. How do you create a company, an entity that can help bridge that cultural gap? Like, I don't know any other American who's worked in this. Well, I know one who's worked in the China manufacturing supply chain for nearly as long as I have. So, yeah, from there is like, well, this seems like an opportunity. So the Sparrows, in effect, it's a manufacturing consultancy that helps international companies find, manufacture, and control their Asia-based supply chains. So we take on projects, honestly, at this point, we take on projects in any step of the hardware development process. And, we can help you from start to finish. So we can take on hardware development projects at any stage of the process. So from, somebody who has an idea of how something is supposed to work, or even somebody who has a working prototype and they're trying to scale up from 1 to 100 to 1,000. We've been in a lot of different engagements. So anything from doing the initial factory audits, to doing a supply chain development, maybe doing process optimization for a particular manufacturing process step, to doing quality control, which is to ensure that the things that go out of the door work and function in the way they were intended to. Project management, right? We want to be the on the ground team that is, helping people execute their manufacturing visions. As my business partner would say, we're fluent in Chinese, English, and engineering. So
I love that. That's a great slogan.
she's a clever little bird, my business partner.
Hmm.
That's very interesting. So if we can go back a little bit more and just talk about how coming to China was a part of your goals growing up, because that's not something that a lot of people would think about in America, especially as a high school student, right? So what was going on in your mind at that time, and how did you get here?
Yeah, man. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago, right? And it was a pretty underprivileged, underserved, more violent than most neighborhood. Uh, And I think at a young age, I acknowledged that if I don't figure out how to build a life for myself, I will probably die in this neighborhood. So it became important for me to kind of eyes wide open see what is the best opportunity for me creating a life that I'm in full control of. It just seems like growing up there, who grew up there never leave. One of my mom's best friends passed away in the last year, and she never left the
Damn.
neighborhood. Ended up becoming an alcoholic. I think he had some organ failures at a certain point, and it, just a dead end. And I really didn't want that. I just remember God. I remember there's sometimes I'd walk outside of my door and like there'd be like random puddles of blood, and I'm just like, okay, let me just walk around this and go. Or you hear about the like the local pastor. All right, I live right next to Saint Sabina. Father Flager is like a really big deal in Chicago. He's always like fighting for our rights and stuff. But he's lost his adopted children. He's lost his adopted children to gun violence in the neighborhood in my alley. So yeah, my family was loving, but I knew I needed to make moves, right? So one of those moves was deciding to go to MIT when I was 12, because I'm just like, shoot for the stars and land in the sky, land in the clouds. Is that what they said? Yeah.
And in the shoot for
the other move,
moon. Yeah.
shoot for the moon. Okay.
Land on the stars, I think. Anyways, go on.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, to the question about China. So when I was 14, I made it into Whitney Young, which was like the top school in Chicago at the time. I think they require everyone to study a language, I believe. But I looked at the options, right? The options were like Japanese, French, Spanish, Chinese, I think maybe Italian. I was pretty good for like a public magnet high school. But I'm just looking at these languages. Which one am I going to get the most utility out of? So I had the pick of these 5 languages. And, at the time, like China, the Chinese were buying up all of America. They had bought the studio that made Inception, right? They're buying properties all over the country. And I'm just like, damn, I need to understand how they get money, because I'm not getting left behind. I'm getting this money, bro. So that's why I started learning Mandarin. It was just, there was no interest in the culture, to be honest. It was all about money, and also the calculus that like, Chinese are like 1/5 of the entire world population. Like, you're going to find somebody who speaks this in the future. So that's where it started. Just seeing the language for its practical utility, and hoping that I'd be able to capitalize it on it in the future.
Gotcha. For sure. But I guess something that comes to mind is, I'm sure like at that point you had some budding interest in learning the language, but what kinds of considerations go into your mind when you're considering, do I want to explore a future that's more international, or do I want to stay in the States and become a very successful entrepreneur or an engineer or whatever? It's a big logical step, I think, as an American youth, to be like, I want to go to another country and live there or work there or learn there, right? Especially you don't have any personal roots with China. So looking back, was there anything part of your experience that maybe nudged you to explore such a foreign, far away kind of place as a destination?
I would say I knew I wanted to visit China, but I never knew I'd live here for so long. That was never in a plan. But what I did know was that for me, like as a 14-year-old, I believe the American dream was bullshit to its core, right? Like everyone's always talking about lifting themselves up, pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps, but yet it's still been systematically deprived of like economic resources that would allow it to thrive. So the American dream is materializing for these immigrants, but not for Black Americans, not for people in this neighborhood. Oh, and then when you start digging into the history of like Chicago, redlining and devaluing, like the government systematically devaluing properties in certain neighborhoods because they're designated as Black neighborhoods, then it's like, okay, wow. We're not all starting out on the same footing at all. Like some of us start off negative, right? There was some stat I read in 2018 where it's like the average household wealth of a Black family is negative $18, which is crazy. Maybe that's just in Boston, but I think it's in
That's
the Boston
insane.
neighborhood, but yeah, which is to say, like, there's just so much debt in the housing, the mortgages, debt in your credit cards, debt from schooling that it averages to be negative. Mental. Um,
That's crazy.
so for me at 14 years old, I'm just like, yeah, this American dream shit is bullshit. So like, if I need to jump ship, where could I go? Like, because I'm not getting caught. America's not catching me. Like, this neighborhood's not catching me. I will not be caught. So yeah, man, China was like 1/5 of the world population, right? It was doing all this explosive economic growth. It was Obama era China, so everybody's all woo woo, we love China. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Those were the
it
days.
seemed it seemed those were the days, bro. It seemed like a good move. So that was it. I never imagined I'd be here so long, but I knew that I needed options, and learning Chinese would help me find one of those options. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've told us the story a couple times probably, but I think every time I hear it, a lot of it does resonate. The idea of like what is the American dream, and like what at what cost, what is like that facade that that people put up about America sometimes. So moving on, then you realized this at an early age while in high school, and then you went to MIT. So tell us a little bit about your MIT experience and how that brought you eventually to China through the Schwarzman Scholars program, and eventually how that got you into becoming the engineer and entrepreneur you are now.
That's a loaded question, Susan. That's like 10 minutes of content. um, okay. Yeah. So MIT, all right? So basically, when I was 12 years old, I've always been a delinquent. Like I was always a troublemaker in class up till sixth grade. I would throw books at kids. Like also, seventh and eighth grade are the years that determine the caliber of public high school we can go to in Chicago. So it was
Mm.
like, okay, now's the time to work hard and set myself up or fall behind. So I had an English teacher in sixth grade. She made us do this assignment where we all created a pamphlet for a school, a college that we wanted to go to. And of course, none of us knew about colleges, but at this point, I knew what engineering was because my mom always put me in like these like summer programs, like U Chicago math summer program, or like a summer program at Northwestern for like video game design or like robotics. So I knew what engineering was. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, then I did a Google search and it was like, okay, MIT is like the top engineering school. So I mean, maybe I'll just try to go there. So that's where it all started. That's this is how I became serious and a good student. I ended up getting straight A's from that point. Graduated valedictorian of my grade school. I got into Whitney Young, which is the top high school, and then just hustled. From the first day I was at Whitney Young, everyone knew I wanted to go to MIT. It was not a secret. Oh yeah, that little nerd over there, he's trying to go there. That was me. I annoyed the hell out of everybody. Uh, and uh, and yeah, I worked, ended up getting in. Uh, Getting in at MIT actually was a different story.
Why do you think they took you?
A sanitized version of the story. So basically, I'd done this program called MITES, where they send all of us underprivileged students to study at MIT for a summer. And it was super cool, and like this has always been the dream. Everything I did in high school was to achieve admission to MIT. But that winter, I actually got waitlisted. And it was shocking because I'm like, yo, like I've done everything. I've given my blood to this. Um, so I remember I had met the admissions while I was at MIT that summer, and I ended up like emailing them. I'm just like, what happened? I was like crying, I was bawling my eyes out to my mom and my dad. I was just bawling my eyes out. They're like, it's okay. But um, yeah, and the admissions officer was like, look, man, if you think there's been a mistake, then why don't you reach out to the admin, and see if anybody at your school can advocate for you. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I ended up reaching out to, I think it was like the VP, principal, or vice. There was some admin in
And
my school, kind of explaining like, hey, I've been working towards this dream of MIT, and like it hasn't been going my way. And can you talk to them? Can you arrange that? So what ends up happening is the admin, she like schedules a call with MIT, the admissions team, and the admissions team ends up telling her that I was waitlisted because I had low SAT 2 chemistry scores or something. And
what? So
for me, it was
random.
just like, yeah, it was
What the
like,
heck?
that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then MIT had told my principal that they were considering two applicants from my school. It was me and one other applicant. So then my principal, she ends up after that first call, she ends up sitting me down and just telling me like what the situation was. Hey, they say your SAT2 scores are low. They're considering two applicants. Like, what do you think? You know, like, you think you're the better applicant? Do you think you're of the caliber to handle MIT? And I end up telling her like, yeah, like hell yeah, like yes, like let's go. So then she ends up having that follow up conversation with the MIT admissions team, and she's like, yeah, like Josh is the guy. Josh is that guy. And basically that's how I got in. That's how I think I finally got into MIT. It was
She
like that
she
extra
advocated.
advocation.
Yeah.
Yeah, like me kind of speaking up, me not being happy, and me just pushing,
Yeah.
trying to push to create the opportunity I wanted. Yeah.
How did you convince her though? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like what you just said right now. You're like, let's go. I'm that guy, right? How did you convince her? Or was it like that?
It was like that. I
Oh,
mean, I think my school record was clear. I was like the math team kid, the orchestra kid, the theater kid who had damn near straight A's. Like one English teacher gave me a B, but
mm,
damn near straight A's. So
we
like,
hate that.
it wasn't. Yeah. So I think, you can do a record check. You can see I was working. You can see where I was from. And you can be like, okay, kid, you want the shot? Do you want the shot or not? So yeah, she really stuck out her neck for me, and yeah, that's how I got into MIT. Like it was the hard work, and it was speaking up and like really fighting to get that opportunity.
You did it and paid off.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's been like a fundamental lesson for me, like, and as much as life is about you being capable and intelligent yourself, it's also about your PR and having the right connections to make things happen. So yeah, that's how I got into MIT. Um, yeah.
And then
Then,
what was that like after you got into MIT? Things go smoothly? Did you know what you wanted to
oh,
do? What
I
resources, opportunities you wanted to, take advantage of
yeah,
or
after I got in, dude, MIT beat my ass, bro. Like that school was so hard.
yeah, oh yeah.
It's so hard. Like I ended up finding a community for myself. It was a um it was a small community inside of a dorm called Chocolate City, and basically like just a bunch of like minority dudes like from like cities. It was, yeah, because at that time, when they were created when Chocolate City was created in 1975, right? The black population of MIT was like 3%, 4%, super low. Um, right? So it was crucial for us to stick together. It's a Republican era in America, like still racial tension on campus, so people have to look out for each other. So that's why it was created, and I was thankful to have it when I ended up going to MIT because it became a foundation for me to be able to do everything else I did. Being able to come home, crack a joke with the bros who like know where you're from. You guys all support each other. You study together. You party together. Invaluable. And yeah, and then MIT beat my ass. Uh, I so I had a good time though. MIT is the party school of Boston. So like the Harvard
Mm.
kids, the BU kids, like everybody's coming to MIT, and like we got down, bro. Like my Chocolate City, we threw the best parties in Boston. We would take over the MIT Student Center. We'd have 400, 500 kids from around the Boston area just like in our student center getting lit, playing Migos.
Oh my
Bro,
God.
we got down. Um, um, yeah, I thought I was going to do biomedical engineering for a bit because I had a lot of interest in like prosthetics, brain machine interfaces. People think that Elon Musk company, Neuralink stuff is new, but that shit's been happening since 2013, right? I was already interested in it. But I ended up declaring mechanical engineering because it was a little more broad. I like the idea of creating physical products. I was almost a genetic engineer as well. I had a summer internship where I was pipetting E. coli and modifying them to try to break down like plastics.
Okay.
Uh, but
It's
I'm
very
like,
different
nah,
from
I
Mac.
can't do
Yeah.
this. I can't do this. Yeah, biology's hard. Yeah, so I did Mechie. Yeah, Mechie's a little more creative, right? You create something out of nothing, a physical product. I love that part of it. I love, the understanding of materials and stresses and strains and properties and like robotic control schemes. Like Mechie was fire, bro. My favorite class was the one that kicked my ass the most. Thermodynamics and fluid dynamics. I basically failed it and I had to drop it the first time I took it. But I ended up taking it again and it was so much more fun the second time. It was so awesome. Like understanding entropy, the chaos theory of like how particles spread and like radiation versus the other words in thermodynamics, I forget. It was fun. It was fun. Yeah. So at MIT, I met this professor named Clara Concison. She's this super like small lady, but she's got a heart of gold. We organized a faculty like mixer, Chocolate City, and like just our professors. We'd like invite them to our dorm and like chat, free ball or whatever. And this professor showed up, and like she has extensive experience in China. She'd been in China in like '80s. Or, like this lady,
Wow.
like, she's done the thing, bro. And I ended up chatting with her, and I'm using my little basic Mandarin at that point, and she's like, "I like your energy, Josh. I'm gonna give you a chance, man." So she ends up inviting me to attend a 2-week theater seminar in Shanghai in 2016. So I ended up going there. That was my first time being in China, being in Shanghai, and I'm like, whoa, this is different, bro. Like Shanghai was the city of the future with a Pearl Tower and the infrastructure, the size of the buildings, the train infrastructure itself is better than anything I've ever seen. It's crazy. And it was also this juxtaposition of the old and the new. I don't know if you've ever been to like Jing'an Temple in Shanghai, but it's like this old ass temple, and around it are like most modern buildings you've ever seen. I'm just like, this is not the China they tell us
This is
about
different.
in the American
Hmm.
news. This is
Yeah.
different, bro. So I think from there it was like, okay, this is awesome. There's a lot more to see and explore here, and like we really don't have a full picture. At that time, while with Professor Concison, I ended up meeting some of the faculty who were responsible for creating the Schwarzman program. So I heard about it before I even applied. So it was always a thing in the back of my head that could be a really cool opportunity to get out, to spend some real time in China. So then from there, it's like 2017 now, senior year, I'm applying for all the fellowships. I ended up being a finalist for Rhodes and for Marshall. Also applied to Schwarzman as well. The first two rejected me. So I think I went with Swordsman. But honestly, I think it was a much better fit for well, I can say that now in hindsight. Hindsight's always 2020. But yeah, I ended up doing the Swordsman program and oh man, it was an awesome opportunity. Um yeah.
Hmm. So once you got to Schwartzman, what was that program like? Is it more based off of classes or networking, or, what did you get out of Schwartzman? Would you say that's the most important thing that you have today?
Yeah, Swordsman Scholars like is was an incredible so it's an incredible program. Swordsman Scholars is a 1-year master's degree funded by Steve Swordsman, the CEO of Blackstone. So I guess, yeah, Blackstone, big money, and a big part of his investment portfolio was Asian properties, Asian investments. For him, he had a fundamental understanding as a businessman of the importance of America continuing to have relationships with the world and with China in particular. So that's kind
Yeah.
of the motivation of the Swordsman Scholars Program. For me, being there at Tsinghua University, which is effectively the MIT of China. Awesome.
Is it?
Beijing. It's funny, right? Because like Beijing is like Boston, right? Harvard and MIT are like a mile away. Beijing University, Peking University, and Tsinghua are a mile away. Peking University like focuses on like the policy, like the soft skills, like arts, literature, blah blah blah. And then Tsinghua is like where the engineers are. And of course, similar to Harvard and MIT, like Harvard is like where all the presidents are from, and then MIT is where all the
Mm,
Harvard nerds are from. So
gotcha.
they do function that way. Um, yeah, Tsinghua was. was awesome. The Schwarzman program was a great introduction to what is contemporary China in terms of understanding its form of governance, the economy, the levers by which people who work in the government, people who work in a society, entrepreneurs, what are the levers that motivate them to work? How do they need to navigate? And then, even understanding the contemporary history of how did China get to where it is today, from like the fall of like the Qing dynasty and like what 1909 or 1911, up until World War II, like the clash between the what is now the Taiwan, what Kuomintang, and
Mm-hmm.
the communists, like the clash in that history, the formation of 1949, like the creation of China. Uh, awesome. Because, I think as a foreigner looking at China, you're like, why are the cameras everywhere? Why is there such a focus on stability and control in this
Yeah.
society?
Yeah.
Well, there have been so many revolutions that have just started from little ideas spreading like wildfire, right? There was a Boxer
Exactly.
Revolution in the early 1900s where the Chinese revolted against the imperial influences here, and then they cracked down hard and killed everyone. And by them, I mean the Western influences killed a lot of people here. So, in any case, understanding this contemporary context really explains what is modern China today. So for me, that was invaluable. The Schwarzman Scholars Network itself, so many down to earth people from all walks of life. You've got politicians there. You've got people who want to be the general of the U.S. Army there. You've got entrepreneurs, economists. You've got like sugar children. That's not a word?
Sugar,
Nepo babies.
sugar,
That's a word.
sugar babies, sugar daddy.
Yeah, you've got
That's a
sugar
different
babies,
thing.
Nepo babies. Yeah, it was awesome. And being in the Tsinghua community, being around like the brightest students in China,
Hmm.
just great. Just a really fun time. I ended up studying uh Yongchun, Wing Chun.
Hmm.
I was studying
Oh,
that for
Wing
like
Chun,
half a year.
like the Bruce
Yeah,
Lee
dude.
stuff,
I was doing
right?
I was doing that Ip Man stuff, bro.
Oh
I was
man,
terrible at it, but it was fun. Yeah.
only at Schwartzman.
Um,
Damn.
only at Schwarzman, man. Um, yeah, I'm very thankful for that program, and that became my foot into the door in China. Without the Schwarzman program, I don't know if I could have stayed because I didn't have any work experience. You need minimum 2 years of work experience to get a work visa in China. But because I had Tsinghua on my resume, I was allowed to stay and actually start working in Shenzhen. So yeah,
Wow,
great
interesting.
program, and the alumni community awesome is yeah, the alumni community also is just got an incredible resource for helping push you, motivate you, and also connect you to the things that'll help you do what you're trying to do. So yeah, it's been great. It's been great.
So now that we've talked about your journey to China and how the Schwartzman program prepared you to do that, I'm also curious in learning a little bit more about how the experience of living in China was, apart from your duties as a student, but what was it like moving into a country that is, largely ethnically homogenous, especially coming from the United States? And also, what were your experiences like as someone who's African American and maneuvering in an environment where you might get a lot of different stares?
I'm triggered. Okay.
I remember those
Yeah.
days. Tough times.
It's so I would say like being in Swordsman, it can be pretty isolating sometimes, right? Because, as a foreigner, it's hard to navigate Chinese society like from zero. You don't have friends, you don't have connections, you don't know how to move about, you don't know how things work. But I think it was always important for me to get out of the college as much as I could. I was always in like business networking events or like in the club. Like I was always just out meeting people, like, yeah, building my own community. But I do think understanding the differences between China and America, it was painful sometimes, right? I remember a story where it was one of my classmates' birthday, and we wanted to go downtown, and we're trying to get into this club, and they let all the whites in the club, but then they looked at us, like me and like my Latin American friends, and they're like, "No, we don't want you guys in the club." And I'm just like, "Why?" Like, "Weishima." And then this bouncer was like, "Mayo Weishima, Mayo Weishima," and bro, I
Damn.
was heated. Like, I was still like at this age, I was still kind of a firebrand. I was kind of like the American government systematically destroyed my community. I was always triggered. So this just got me immediately. I spent the next 24 hours just fuming, like crying, half crying. The other black people in Schwarzman, half just, what is this world? But I think over time you learn to contextualize it. You learn to contextualize why the Chinese take pictures of you every time they see you in public, why they touch your hair, why they make the assumptions they make about you. And for me, the contextualization has, you can sum it down to, there is a such thing as, there are different types of ignorance, right? Um, Different types of prejudice. I think the ignorance and prejudice you encounter in China is a result of a lack of exposure, right? This society is so homogeneous. And I think that's something we as Americans take for granted is how diverse and colorful our world is. But China is
Yeah.
not that case, right? So for a
Yeah.
lot of these people I'm interacting with, it's probably their first time seeing a black person, their first time seeing a black person with dreads. So it's like, what is that? Or they've got preconceived notions from like the 90s American movies they saw, and they're like, oh, all blacks are evil. Stay away from that. And it is what it is.
There's also the
It's
Africa
it's a much different
component,
type of
right?
prejudice than. Oh, absolutely. The
Which
the
is very
component
different
of,
from
the
your
One Belt, One Road
experience,
scheme. Yeah.
but it still
Yeah.
impacts, how people see you, right? Which is quite absurd, I'm sure, in some ways.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. A lot of people think I'm African, which is not, it's not like it's an insult or anything, but yeah. In any case, I think moving about society, it's about contextualization. It still gets hard sometimes, right? I've been in more rural parts of China, and the intense staring, right? You walk through the crowd, they're breaking their necks to look at you.
I mean, I have a mutual story that involves you. I remember staying over at your apartment once in Shenzhen, and you live in like a pretty local residential complex, like Cun, right? It's very dense. There's people of all different age groups, and I think we were going to get brunch or something in a restaurant in that area, and I just remember everybody staring at us, and I'm not used to that in China, but I got a taste of what it's like to be you in the area that you live in, which I mean, it was very uncomfortable, and I think that feeling has stayed with me. Like it's just so peculiar, you know, because I don't even face
Yeah.
that in America.
Yeah.
In Chicago, there aren't that many Asians, but it's not weird to have an Asian person, right, show up or whatever.
Yeah.
But in China, sometimes it is very extreme like that, and whether or not people mean well or are just curious or they don't really they don't know how to respond to something that they've never seen before. From your perspective, it is very strange.
Yeah.
I can
For
attest.
sure, man. Um, yeah, and it used to make me super angry, I would put on this shell, I'd walk around, don't interact with me. Like I had fire in the eyes, like people stared at me, I stare back, try burning them, like lighting them on fire with my eyes. At a certain point, it is what it is. If this is my decision to stay here, these are things you have to accept. The fact that there are very few of you here, and people are trying to figure out how to interact with you. Um, yeah, I mean, even to this day, it's been 7 years. It bothers me a lot less. I mean, all of it, right? And my Mandarin's at a point where it's like, before they have a chance to say or do something, I'm already talking to you in your own language.
Exactly.
So that, I think that's helped a lot. And but even still, like with my Apple job, I spent a lot of time at Foxconn, right? So like showing up to work every day, like the security guards, the factory workers, they're breaking their necks and they're looking, right? But then when you contextualize it, these are people who likely come from more rural parts of China who've moved to Foxconn for that employment opportunity, interacting with very, very few foreigners in their lives. So yeah, dude, you stick out. So even as they're staring, as they're making a little ha ha, look at that black guy, because the dudes always laugh. I don't know why they freaking laugh, but it's fine, man. I mean, it's the world, and I've chosen to be here, to challenge myself to do something weird, and it's just a part of that. It's a part of that experience. Yeah.
What's the weirdest shit that's ever happened to you, like by nature of being a black expat in China?
Damn. Um, I'm gonna pick the one. No, no, it's dude. This is peak. So it was when I used to live in that little urban village. At this point, I'm still broke as hell. So I couldn't afford an Apple iPhone. So I was buying Huawei everything. So I was upgrading to the latest Huawei phone that was still wasn't even that good, but I needed a new phone for some reason. So I walk in a Huawei store in this little urban village. And at this point my Chinese is workable. Um, so I'm just talking to this guy, and he's probably never seen a foreigner. So in Mandarin, he's like, wow, look at you. You're so handsome and strong. Where are you from? And I'm like, hey, I'm Josh. I'm from Chicago. And he's like, wow, welcome to China. I love your people. And, he's showing me all the phones and stuff, showing me all the fancy phones. And he's like, hey, are you dating a Chinese girl? And then so I'm like, nah, man, I'm not dating. And he's like, bro, you should be dating a Chinese. What you need to do is date and impregnate a Chinese so you can get your genes into the Chinese genetic pool and you will help us create the next Olympic athletes. And I'm like, whoa,
Whoa.
bro, yo, what?
Oh my God.
I'm like, maybe I need to do that for China, bro. So I don't know. What do you say to that? I don't know.
That's quite a bit of goodwill, I suppose, exerted in a very
Think so.
strange
Some
direction.
goodwill.
Yeah,
I don't know if
he has a
eugenics is the
vision.
word for it. Utilitarian. Yeah.
Mhm. This guy has a vision. This worker
Oh
at the
my God.
Huawei store, like in the
Yeah.
random village.
He's very prescient. Who's the mixed blood skateboarder or snowboarder for the Chinese Olympics? Yeah. He wanted me to make a
Yeah.
black Eileen Gu, basically. I don't know if that would
Oh,
work, but
okay.
yeah, man.
Insane.
Oh,
I've never heard that one.
yeah,
My goodness.
big
Neither
time.
positive or negative, just strange and interesting.
Sure.
Well, that was a very interesting tangent. But I would like to learn about what was the path that you took career-wise once you were in Shenzhen. Walk us through some of the different roles and experiences that you had and how that eventually led to you starting your own consulting business in manufacturing and supply chain.
So in 2019, I was looking at so many different, God, I was looking at so many different job opportunities coming out of Schwarzman. Um, Shenzhen is the factory of the world. It's the R&D center of the world. And as such, like every major American company that makes physical product has representation here. R&D. So Apple R&D, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, all these products, they're being built in Shenzhen in this Guangdong province of China. So I wanted to tap into that. I'm like, I'm already in China. I have this engineering background. Let me see how far I can take this. Let me get a feel for what does it mean to be in Chinese manufacturing. So I ended up taking my first job, which was at a small hardware design company in Shenzhen. So at this job, we basically helped foreign companies design, build their own consumer electronic devices. We had our in-house design teams, in-house engineering teams, in-house sourcing and supply chain teams, and like we would execute for foreigners. My role was half mechanical engineer and half project manager, which means that half of the time I was the one like using SolidWorks and designing the mechanical enclosure for a consumer electronic product. So like designing, like, for example, for a smart ring, I'm creating 4 different SKUs, creating the 3D representation of what it looks like and where all the internal electronic components would fit, and then how it would all come together for like a touchscreen panel. We had a touchscreen panel that was being used to like control a VR headset. So, what does this housing look like? Is this an injection molding process? How will it be assembled? Yeah, so that was half of my job, and the other half of my job was project management. So I'm directly interacting with my Chinese supply chain and my Chinese engineering teams who don't speak English to manufacture these products, directly interacting with these factories and these external supply chains to get deliveries sent for whatever we were trying to do at the time. So it was an incredible opportunity because it was honestly trial by fire type shit, bro. It's like if I don't learn Mandarin at an engineering level to do this role, I can't do my job. I am not contributing to what this company's doing. So yeah, it was great for getting my skills closer to where they needed to be able to conduct engineering business in China. So after that, around 2021, I kind of had enough of working there. I'm looking for something different. So I ended up applying for and then joining Apple. So from 2021 to now, I've been working at Apple as an R&D project manager, meaning that I'm essentially a firefighter. We focus on creating the cameras or the depth module sensors for Apple products. So we're creating cameras for iPads, iPhones, Macs, and my role is as a project manager who lives in Shenzhen to make sure everything goes smoothly. My two KPIs are: is my product delivered at the right quantity to the next station to be assembled in an iPhone? Is it delivered at the right quantity and at the right quality and on time? If these KPIs are met, I will be paid. If they are not met, I need to make sure they are met. Anything from like an upstream logistics issue to a factory internal human resource, some process that has gone incorrect that's creating faulty products, or to even a fundamental design issue that's coming from like our own Apple internal team that needs to be driven upstream and corrected. I need to make sure that at the very least the right players in a room to solve that issue so that I can send my stuff out on time. So it's been dope. Like working for Apple China, because I won't talk about Apple Cupertino. That's a different work culture. I think they're all crazy. But Apple China, God, everyone works so hard. Everyone works together. It's such a collaborative environment. And it's the type of environment where if you tell somebody you need something done, they're going to do it. They're going to go out of their way to like help you to achieve your goal because we're all in this together. I love that energy and that spirit. And that's something I try to bring to everything I do now. You know, it's not combative. It's not as much about the politics as it is about we're in this together. We're fighting together to create the best products we can create. So yeah, it's been an absolute joy. Um, so then from there, concurrently, last year, me and Susan created the Sparrows. So that's a manufacturing consultancy. A sparrow. It's a small bird, but it's small and mighty, you know? It has nothing to do with Jack Sparrow, I promise. But yeah, you know, at the Sparrows, we're a manufacturing consultancy. So we basically try to represent the interests of international clients in Chinese manufacturing. So over 2024, we've had 4 or 5 super interesting engagements with customers from all over the world, US, Canada, India, Africa. It's been awesome, you know. We're a small team. We're a team of 3, effectively, but the things we've been able to do in such a short amount of time, from making 150,000 pads and sending them to Sierra Leone to partnering with a major American NGO to develop medical devices. We're a team of 3, but we're getting such good feedback from the little things you've done so far. It's just, I'm so pumped for what's coming next.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, I'll be going full time with the Sparrows June. That's the target. And man, I basically have 2 jobs now, right? Because I work at Apple from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then, you know, after 5 p.m., my Sparrows job starts. So now I'm working with my partners to do lead generation, to do these client introduction calls, to prepare proposals, and then to create like a social media presence for our brand. Then, you know, stepping in, yeah, it's tiring but exciting. And the team we've built, uh, the cohesion is so cool. Like, like basically, we've got like I call her the godmother, right? So we've got one person who's the godmother, right? She's been in supply chain for like 20 years in China. She knows how to find vendors. She knows how to do quality control. She's on the site taking care of business, bro. She be out there like I need you to re-inspect the thickness of that packaging because that's not meeting my expectation. And what's the tolerance of your production process? Is it zero point 0.1 millimeters? And I'm like, yo, fam, chill. It's a box, but she goes hard.
That's
She
intense.
goes so hard. And then we've got like the other partner who's also my little sister from MIT. I don't know if she wants to reveal herself or not here, but you know,
Mm.
she's like the operations and she's the project manager. So she's driving these projects to completion. She's interacting with the clients. She's making sure that we're getting all our needs met on time. And then handling some of the internal operations. And then that leaves room for me to be the face, like the one who talks the shit, who's at the event, who's trying to get more visibility for us so that they can do the work that they do so well, you know? So I thought I'd actually be doing more engineering, more of the actual work in this type of company. But honestly, I'm very happy with this arrangement. I think everybody's contributing as necessary. You know, we step in and support each other. Yeah. So I know there are like cool moments though where I get to step in, have meaningful contributions, right? So where there's one client, we have to create a quality control standard for their product. They didn't know how to do it. I had an idea of how to do it because I've seen it at Apple. So I'm like, okay, sit down and write up some stuff. So I ended up drafting it for them. Then my team would go to these factories and do the execution, make sure things are done correctly. And
Gotcha.
it's or there are other moments where for another client, it's like they wanted us to have they wanted us to have a certain food grade testing for the product, but the test arrangement it didn't quite hit what they were expecting. They were expecting a certain level of testing, but it was a little below. So my team is like, "Oh my god, what do we do?" And I'm just like, "Yo, fam, chill. Let me just talk to them real quick. Let me just talk to them real
Hmm.
quick. We're gonna be good." I know at the end
Yeah,
of the day, the client, everything's all good. These clients are awesome people, and it's just about maintaining trust, maintaining your integrity, putting your best foot forward. And if you make a misstep, honestly, as long as clients feel like you're giving it your all and you're going to go out of your way to correct it, I think every misstep can be accounted for. Then you build your own reputation. It just grows from there. So yeah, man, super pumped, super excited. I'm very thankful for the team I have and excited for 2025.
that's awesome, man. Really wishing you the best. That seems like a very great opportunity for you to keep growing and then also utilize your China expertise as well as your technical expertise and connecting those things together to create
Definitely,
bridges
bro.
between China and the rest of the world. So, what is your outlook on China now? Would you recommend young people to visit, to work here, or to live here for a period of time?
I would recommend, let's start with another thesis.
Hmm. Feel free to add
uh,
caveats.
China type shit. China manufacturing won't be replaced in the next decade, despite what the West is trying so hard to do. And that's for minimum different reasons. Reason number one is that China has such an ingrained supply chain here. This is the only country in the world where you can build a product from front to back without having to import anything, right? Everything can be built within this country's own borders, which is an incredible feat of supply chain, of engineering, of expertise, of an industry developing over the last 45 years. It's not easily replaceable. Number two, the Chinese work ethic is insane. Point number three is the level of education in these different countries, right? The Chinese are hyper educated. Like everyone has master's degrees here. So when it comes to finding engineers who have the background necessary to run a manufacturing operation or to be technicians or to be, process engineers, easy to find, very easy to find here. I think there's another point. Let's call it costs and efficiencies. So, yes, it is the case where exporting your manufacturing to a place like Vietnam or Thailand, the cost of labor are lower for certain. But because of the points I just mentioned, you're taking efficiency hits. So, what a Chinese company can do in a day, if a Chinese company create 10,000, maybe at one of these other countries that are still developing their infrastructures, they can only do 500 or 600, right? So when you're working at like the scale of a medium to large enterprise, these are hits. Like, these are hits on your ability to produce on time and reach your target market. So yeah, because of these reasons and more that I'm currently forgetting, I think the Chinese have a moat on manufacturing that no amount of tariffs from our fearless leader and president will
Mm,
will will change. So I say that to say, for me, China is something that is to be understood. I hope that everyone would have an opportunity to come here and visit and work and live, but at the very least, I would ask that everyone try to have an exposure to China that isn't coming from American mainstream media. Um, it's just not representative of what's actually happening here. It's not to say that China is perfect. It's by no means is it perfect, a perfect society, but it is a formidable society, and it will not be so easily impacted
sl-
by these moves. Yeah, and also, dude, I mean, you guys already know this, but we're so intertwined as countries and economies. Taking this trade war to a logical extreme, if it ever went to a logical extreme, would be embargoes on whole Chinese products, or if you're on the thinking about the military expansion or whatever, blah blah blah. War, right? People are always talking about U.S.-China incoming war. What that would do to the American economy. Number one, an actual conflict like that goes past tariffs, Apple is dead immediately. The American S&P 500 stinks. Like people's pensions are impacted, right? The economic ramifications of pushing this conflict any further would hurt all of us. And I don't think people think about that enough. They're just like, oh yeah, they're Chinese. We'll just take it all back. No, dude. Apple is dead. 100%. Microsoft is crawling, struggling. Like Amazon will be struggling. Like it's yeah, people take it for granted, but this is not so easy to unentrench. We're way past that point, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the dream?
Short to medium term is economic freedom and freedom of location. I think that if when my company is successful, I can be based anywhere and be meaningfully helping to bring the globe to China in terms of manufacturing. I think ideally, like at this point, I've been in Shenzhen 6 years. This feels like a second home. This is the longest place I've ever lived outside of Chicago. So I'm very fond of my life being half between Shenzhen and America for the rest of my life. I'm good. This is already awesome for me. So that's what I hope to be doing. I enjoy the process of connecting people and helping to translate ideas from one party to the other. I enjoy the process of visiting factories and understanding, what is motivating this factory boss? How do I incentivize them to want to work with this foreign company? How do I build a sense of mutual trust and reciprocity where everyone wins? Actually wins. Like, no bullshit, right? Where everyone wins. And this is this is a fun journey for me. And the more and more the Sparrows operates, the more I realize there is very few, if any, company that is doing what we're doing the way we're doing it. So that excites me. I hope to be the bridge, continue to be the bridge.
Awesome. Great. So before we wrap up here, you just have like an opportunity for you to share any advice that you have for young people or any recommendations or self-plug any of your accounts and platforms and websites on the things that you're working on. So feel free to share with our listeners,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you want to share.
I mean, I say for any young person that's watching, don't take your 20s for granted. For me, I was blessed that my parents loved me so much that they spent their 401 on my MIT degree. I still anger at them for that, but they did it, which means that I graduated MIT with no debt, which means that I
Huge.
I am yeah, I'm a 22-year-old in the world with no debt, no family, no marriage, no responsibility to anybody but myself. So I can do crazy shit like live in China for all of COVID with no repercussions, right? But I feel like I would never have done this if I was in my 30s or my 40s. There's no way. Because at that point, I've probably already bought a house. Like I've probably already made investments. I have things that need to be paid off. Time is ticking for one reason or another. But at 22 years old, there is nothing, you know? So do crazy shit. Like just go be in the world. Go try something weird, right? Just do whatever you want. Because eventually
Agreed.
it'll all make sense. It doesn't have to make sense now, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and that was my philosophy. I think that's why I stayed for so long. I'm just like, yo, balls to the wall. I have nothing to lose. Like, I'll take a 5K USD a year job because I can, because that's going to differentiate me in the future when it comes to someone who knows how China manufacturing works. So yeah, man, I would say for any young person listening, like, do crazy shit when you're young and when you can afford to, because you have nothing to lose. We feel like we're on such a time crunch to get our money up and it's reasonable for people. Like it's the pressure of living in America,
Yeah.
the financial terror that we're all under there. It makes
Chipotle
a lot
is
of
over
sense,
$20 a
but
bowl, man.
that's insane.
Insane.
That's
Yeah.
insane, bro. Damn. I remember when I was like in the San Fran airport last year, bro. I was buying a burger. That burger was $30, bro, for a basic ass burger in the airport. Almost flipped, bro. Like what in any case, right? America's gone crazy. But as much as we can, like I think we need to be taking risks. You know, I'm not one of the Apple employees who fanboys over Steve Jobs, but there's one thing I liked that he said a lot. He said that We don't connect the dots moving forward. We connect the dots looking back. So by that, Steve Jobs meant that in college, like this dude studied typography, he studied liberal arts, right? He studied business. He just studied a bunch of random stuff, right? Apple wasn't even like an inkling, I think, at this point. But right around the time when he was creating Apple and trying to differentiate Apple from Microsoft, which was the other existing player at the time for personal computers, he had enough of an understanding for typography, for liberal arts, for the arts itself, where he's like, I want a product that facilitates, that has an aesthetic, that has a visual language for itself that stands out from the things I'm seeing. And that appreciation for aesthetics, for art, for quality, I think that has been the driving force that differentiates Apple moving forward. And it's all because Steve Jobs was weird as hell and studied all types of art stuff when he was
Yeah.
our age. And all of that eventually ended up contributing to differentiating his end product at 30 years of
Hmm.
age. So gotta be
And
weird,
he
gotta do
he
crazy
wasn't
shit.
afraid to be himself,
Go,
right? You can't be afraid to be
yeah,
yourself, basically. Yeah.
facts, bro. So yeah, be weird, do crazy shit. It doesn't have to make sense, but it'll probably make sense eventually. and,
Mm.
and it's okay. I think that's my message for the youth. And follow my IG, Josh. I think JASHSPARROWS. Again, I'm going to try to show you guys like China manufacturing, right? I'll teach you guys about Chinese proverbs. I'll give you guys like insights into like what it means to live and work here. And hopefully you or your friends will become my clients in the future.
Ooh,
Yeah.
very pragmatic.
Yeah. Pragmatic. I give you free value and maybe you pay me hella money in the future.
Those are some great insights, and thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of young people in their early 20s would probably find a lot of help and comfort in those words. So before we kind of cap off our session for today, I just wanted to leave some time for all of us to share any recommendations of interesting books, media, topics, or ideas that we've come into contact with recently. I can go first. Yeah, so this year I've made it a goal for myself to start writing more, whether that's reviews of my favorite albums or poems or short stories. And I found that it can be kind of hard to sit on inspiration if you're not used to writing often. But a source of inspiration that I've had just to find the motivation to write more regularly is this book called On Writing by Stephen King. And this is basically his love letter to writing based off of a personal memoir of his relationship with writing. And throughout this book, you can learn about him, his life, what molded him to become the writer that he became, as well as all of the tips and expertise that he's acquired that he's kind of just sharing through the portrayal of his life, which I think is really helpful. It's also a very easy read, unlike a very specific writing guide, because it kind of reads as a biography in some ways. This is definitely something that I would recommend to people who are interested in writing their own things and people who have very specific idea of, what is good writing or when is it appropriate to write. Stephen King can give a lot of perspective to break through all of those limitations. So yeah, it's my rec.
Awesome.
And you, Susan?
So I recently just got back from Cambridge, and whenever I'm in town, one of the things I do is visit some of my favorite bookstores. There are really some great ones in the Cambridge, Boston area. And my favorite is probably the Harvard bookstore right in Harvard Square. I could spend hours there. So I picked up a few books during this trip, and one of them was Behind You Is the Sea. It's by, apologies for butchering the name, but Susan Wadi Daraj. And it's a novel about three Palestinian American families, and basically touching upon their everyday lives and just how they live as Americans, but also as children and relatives of Palestinian immigrants. And what I really liked about this book is that given the conflict, it was very refreshing to get something that's outside the realm of stereotypes about Palestinian culture. And like the description says, Behind You the Sea faces stereotypes about Palestinian culture head on, shifting perspectives to weave a complex social fabric replete with weddings, funerals, broken hearts, and devastating secrets. So that would be my recommendation for this session. Really enjoyed the book. Made for a great read during an 11-hour ride on the airplane. So now I'll pass it on to you, Josh.
Awesome.
So there's this book called The World for Sale. This book is basically about the commodity traders behind the scenes who act kind of like contemporary pirates, brokering, negotiating deals and sales of commodities across country borders, across military conflicts, across embargoed territories from one place to the other. And in doing so, driving the world economy and getting stupid rich, right? So this book talks about commodity traders who snuck past like the South African embargo placed because of apartheid, the world placed on South Africa for apartheid, secretly selling oil to South Africa. Or it talks about how they, in the back door, negotiated trades during peak Cold War era US, like negotiating trades of oil and food, taking a risky visit to like a city on the border of the USSR. And then they could have been just taken. They could have been disappeared, right? But they're doing this for the money, bro. They are making crazy moves for the money. And it's, for me, it's just so eye-opening, right? Like we hear these big picture narratives about what does it mean to be successful, to start this company, to get VC funding, to create these entities. But what we don't see are the players in the shadows who are pulling all the strings and making things happen that we wouldn't even believe. These are the type of people who were like negotiating directly with like the Saudi Arabia, like the oil states, and like sometimes on America's behalf, driving oil prices down to be sustainable for our country, creating market opportunities as market makers for us to be the oil consuming monster that we are as a country. It's mental. So I would recommend everybody check that book out.
Awesome. Who is it by? Do you have the author on the...
The World for Sale by Javier Blas and Jack Farchi. Javier,
Awesome.
Javier Blas, and Jack Farchy. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff.
It's crazy. I got to add that to my list. Thanks for the rec, man.
Yeah, bro.
Cool. Well,
No
that
worries,
was a
bro.
lot of fun. Thanks for coming, and
Yeah.
really glad to have, heard about your experience and learned a lot of new stuff about you too. Even though we've known each other for a really long time.
I'm glad you guys had fun. I had fun.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Liminal Space, where we discover the thresholds of culture, identity, and experience. If our conversation resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, or share your own story. We love to hear what you've discovered in the spaces in between. Join us next time as we continue to explore what it means to live in the liminal. Bye-bye.